Alright, instruction leaflet number 2389, December 1980, supersedes issue dated February 1956. Shop maintenance D22 type passenger car brake equipment device D22 brakes. Westing Air Brake Division, American Standard Incorporated, Wilmerding, Pennsylvania 15148. Alright, contents, general instructions, shop tools, section 1, pneumatic devices, D22 type control device, valves, service emergency service portion, emergency portion, quick service relay, quick service valve, B relay valve, water raising equipment, A2 car discharge valve, select instructors, P3 Delco elastic controller, and B3 Delco elastic control valve, section 3, section 2, electric pneumatic devices, F relay valve, 21B magnet valve, K3 type pneumatic switch, blunt backup valve, section 3, electrical devices, axle generators. Note: Delco Static is registered trademark, American Standard Incorporated. General instruction: it is essential that all the brake products given the attention of the such cleaning period ensure that being serviceable with the cleaning condition, properly lubricated, but applied with the car. The following instruction: clean, lubricating, and handling of the equipment to prepare for the end of the practice of the processes for you doing this may be uniform and effective. The D22 type passenger car brake equipment consists of various operating portions, some of which are attached to the respective pipe brackets. Pipe connections semi-permanent, made with the pipe bracket with the operating portions more readily be removed and replaced if necessary. When operating the portions that are detached from their respective pipe bracket with the parts of the exposed with the dirt, therefore protected against the dirt and damage. Special shipping covers are provided which may be detached with the portion immediately after the portions have been tested. Approved, remove the tax rack. The covers must not be removed until each clean portion is about ready to be applied with the car, even though special precautions must be taken to avoid damaging the parts, getting dirt into them, operating problems will apply them. All work on the repair track with connection with the cleaning testing D22 type of brake equipment must be forwarded in accordance to the instructions specified in the current issue. Instruction leaflet number 2389, supplement 1, instruction pamphlet number 5039 4, supplement 1, clean and repair D22 control valve. Portions must be prescribed, tested for the AAR standard test rack in accordance with the code of the test contained with the current issue instruction pamphlet number 503921. With the other devices in accordance with the code contained in the respective test codes. Operating portion of the devices, unless otherwise specified, must be assembled without having any of the portion removed from the place without the car. All cleaning, repairing, lubricating of the valve portions must be done with a competent workman and a suitable bench in a clean, well-lighted area. When assembling operating portions are carried with it must be exercised to avoid distortion of the belts and studs, nuts, etc., which can be best done by using wrenches especially adapted for this work. The similar care must be taken to avoid mutilation or damage when disassembling the portions with respect to the piston, springs, gaskets, slide valves, graduating valves, etc. When reassembling valve portions, it is important that the caps and screws are not tight and sufficient to prevent the gasket leak, yet not excessively cover the distortion of the covers and gasket. The purpose of the instruction to avoid unnecessary expense for the due for the careless handling of the parts, since it is possible to assemble and disassemble the parts of the portion readily. If the excessive force is required, investigation should be made immediately to cover the difficulty. Warning: following statements of warning apply whenever the symbol with the exclamation mark and a triangle appears in the maintenance procedure. Failure to observe the precautions may result in a serious injury to perform or injury to those performing the work on my band standards. Use the air jet, which must be less than 30 psi gauge, blow clean parts and blow dry after the clean. The solvent will particle of the dirt will drop. Cleaning of the solvent of the airborne while wire brushing may also be covered with a particle of the dirt, rust, or scale to become airborne. These conditions may cause the skin or eye irritation. When using air jet, do not direct it toward another person. Improper use of the air jet could result in bodily injury. Personal eye protection must be worn with the performing aim with the work device for the component with the parts to avoid possible injury to eyes. Use of solvent agency with the lubricants for the involved health, the safety of the manufacturers of the solvent and the lubricants should be contacted safety data such as the OSHA form, OSHA 20 or equivalent recommended precautions procedure. All manufacturers should be followed. To prevent receiving electrical shock when performing electrical tests, hands must be cleared with electrical components. Contact with the housing for those must be bodily contact with the work of the bench. Failure to heed the warning could result in severe injury or death. When performing any test of the device's equipment for the vehicle, when on the car test for the safety precautions must be taken to ensure vehicle movement that will not occur, which could result in injury personnel with damage of the equipment. Assembly may be under spring load. Exercise caution during assembly so that the parts flying out will cause bodily injury. All air supply with or electrical current to the device or to the component must be cut off before the device of any of the component part is removed from the equipment arrangement. Bottled up air pressure, even though air supply is cut off, may cause gaskets or particles to of the dirt become airborne and increase the sound level of the device of any of the component with the remove of the equipment arrangement. Personal eye with the eye protection must be worn. Care taken to avoid possible injury performing any of the work device component of the part. And we're going to go back and look at these questions. You have an open-ended wrench, ratchet, socket, screwdriver, open-ended wrench, piece, a plug, Allen wrench, plug wrenches, long extension, leg extension bar. Alright, you have here you have your short shop tools for the D22 brake equipment. Pin, spanner, square, hexagon nuts, spanner wrench, adjusting wrench, spin, spline plug wrenches with choke plugs, and spiral plug wrench, short extension bar, long extension bar. Alright, the D22AR control valve shows the safety valve at the end and the emergency portion of the pipe bracket. The service portion underneath the service portion, a duplex release valve, and then from there you show a graduated release cap, release interlocking valve, and on the other end a quick servicing and limiting valve. This picture shows the D22A control valve, safety valve, emergency valve, quick service limiting pour valve on the side of your service portion with a duplex release valve underneath the quick service limiting valve and your pipe bracket in between your emergency portion and service portion. I think we have some other pictures on the right. Now we're starting with section 1, pneumatic devices, D22 type control valve service portions, cleaning, inspecting, repairing. Service and portion must be clearly disassembled. All parts inspected, cleaning. While cleaning, parts expected the body must be washed. Suitable solvent with dissolve oil and grease and permit. All parts thoroughly clean without abrasion of the exterior of the body must be thoroughly cleaned by wire brushing by the means of the cloth saturated with suitable solvent. Piston slide valves, graduating valves. All piston slide valves, graduating valves must be thoroughly cleaned to remove all of the oil and dirt and gum and grease. Due to this, piston slide valve with graduating valve assembly must be disassembled with an organic solvent type. Cleaner must be used, but not an alkaline cleaning solution. These parts must be carefully handled to avoid damage to the seat of the sealing surface before cleaning with a self-oiling piston. Oil plugs must be removed. The oil drained. If the oil unplug is hexagon type, before removing the strip of the cap, the equivalent into the outer tap and opening, it will not be distorted. So it will not be distorted by the wrench when being removed. Non-hex type oil plugs may be removed without inserting a cap screw. Removing oil plug with a piston cap that must be taken to avoid taking from the piston some of the oil plug cap with the tighten excessively tapping some of the other means for the use to loosen it rather by wrench bend device with which cause the damage. Piston ring with the groove that must be cleaned without removing the ring from the piston groove. This can be done by dipping the piston with the cleaning fluid, removing the rising around with the groove. The operation must be repeated until the groove of the ring are thoroughly cleaned. After the excessive cleaning fluid can be blown away and dried off by a jet of air. Where ring is stuck with the dirt too tightly to be moved in the groove, that may be necessary to soak the ring penetrating the oil, then tap the ring gently with a hardboard block. The purpose of the maple, the hickory block about 1 inch by 1 and 1 inch by 4 inch, with square ends should be used to tap the ring flush with the top of the edge of the groove. The tapping should start at one side of the ring joint, progressively around the piston, short steps until the ring is loosely sufficient to be moved in the groove. In the groove, procedure will not loosen the ring if the evidence of the ring is in binding, in which cause the groove may be reconditioned with a new ring fitted. When necessary to remove or replace the piston ring, suitable tools must be used to avoid the damage of the groove. Note: when fitting the new lap rings, install them carefully in the narrow wrap bearing surface of the scarf toward the brake pipe side of the piston. A self-oiling piston wick which runs from the small crescent-shaped recess of the recess in both the ring groove and into the oil reserve is damaged. For any cause such as the reconditioned groove, etc., must be replaced with a new wick with approximately 5 3/4 inch long. And to facilitate assembly, special wicks available to having the bare wire on the end of the 2 1/4 inch. Is specially prepared where the wicks are not available. The wire may be bared. The wire may be bared by burning. The bare wire can easily start down through the wick hole of the wick bulb of the hole of the button tip of the bottom 1/4 inch left of the ring groove, and then of the wick of the ring groove with the bend across the middle with the breather hole with the anchored with the last hole in the recess section of the bottom of the ring groove. The bore wire must be cut off with the wick around with the counterclockwise direction around the oil reservoir. The free end of the wick must not obstruct the come in contact within 1/32 of the inch diameter before be their hole located adjacent to the wick hole of the oil reservoir. When the piston ring of the groove throughout the clean and drive, the end of the ring must be positioned over the lubricating hole, which is in the bottom of the ring groove at the top of the self-oiling piston. Raise the end of the ring and see the lubricating wick is flat on the bottom of the recessed portion of the ring groove of the wick. This wick not touched with the ring with the mouth of the breather hole. Figure 4 shows section views of self-oiling piston. Characteristic of the formation of the lead deposit of the surface of the cast brass parts of the surface of the piston ring that must be given the oil of the bath. The treatment before assembly must be applied after the ring is lapped with the side of the ring with the groove of the treatment must be used with all sand of the cast brass systems. Includes self-oil piston, but not is required with the forged deck half of the piston of the oil. The mixture must consistent with equal parts with the volume light lubricating machine oil of the mineral spirit of the piston of the ring must be played with a tank with containing enough of the mixture of the submerge the piston halfway up the piston stem must remain with the mixture not less than 3 minutes. After the treatment, the piston must be momentarily dipped in suitable solvent thoroughly with blown off the air with the rings have been removed with the new ring has been fitted. It must be played with the ring groove without further lapping with their sizing. If it should be necessary to lap the shaft of the ring after the oil bath, the treatment of the piston of the ring must be given the treatment again. If the necessary for the repair of the non-metallic graduating valve of the self seat by lapping the following with the method of the procedure provided the means of obtaining the most effective results. Lapping purpose of the item specified below should be available the 2 steel plate with approximately 10 inch by 12 inch. One side of the having very smooth. The ground surface the thickness of the plate should be sufficient to prevent the distortion with the normal use. B. This first plate we use with the procedure should be have been 9 inches by 11 inch sheet with a 150 emery paper glued. Finished surface of the steel plate with the left half of the emery paper should be left in, and the right half should be rubbed down in a piece of the steel with having the ground with the finished surface of it until the original cutting edge of the brace was eliminated. See the left half of the finished surface of the second plate with the rubbed with the floating emery with the use of the piece of the brazing. With the brass half of the ground with the finished surface of the old brake with the valve, the rotary valve with the right half of the plate should be left as is. The procedure involved with use of these plates is followed. The rough lapping is done with the left half of the number 150 emery paper. Use with the bearing surface is flat. 2 of the valve is lapped with the right side with the 150 number 150 emery paper. The rub down with the surface of the bearing surface is operationable smooth. 3 of the valve is lapped on the left half of the second steel tape of the bearing surface to develops a finished smooth surface. 4 of the valve is lapped with the right half of the second steel plate until the finish of the bearing surface is highly polished. Before graduating valve is placed in the seat with the receiver, the proper leaf condition, meaning with the linear lapping it with a metallic graduating valve, preferably with a suitable lapping block and lapping stick. Alright, bushings. All piston bushings after they have been cleaned with the must be checked for the grooving the shoulder with the cracking pitting with a hollow ring bearings for the check with the taper for the outer round with the preferably with the dial indicator gauge of the bushing should be true with the precision grind with the boring machine means with the hand grind with the bare 4 gauge of the ring side with the A or approved cylinder gauge. See instructions. and number leaflet number 2356-4 with instruction you with the condemn engage with the number D22 type control valves. After the bushings of the reconditioning, they must be wiped with the oil rail, wipe clean with a dry rag, with the finally clean with a solvent, suitable solvent, and remove all of the tray with the powdered bushing material before reassembling. Alright, we're going to look at these real quick. Alright, they're not numbered, but this would be your D22 emergency control valve over here, the service portion emergency position, the collector, the quick service portion, the pipe brackets in between, and then the quick supply on the left, and then, okay. Similar drawing, but with the control of AR control valve. We're going to rotate this back. Alright, gaskets, diaphragm, rubber sheath, the valve with the rubber parts. All gaskets, diaphragms, rubber sheath, valve with the rubber parts include all O-rings are to be replaced with the new Westinghouse air brake division parts. Strainer of the filter of the pipe bracket with the cartridge filter must be replaced with the new filters attached. Choke plug with the must be replaced with the new parts. All filters and strainer with the must be thoroughly washed out with a suitable solvent and blown dry with the air with a jet of clean dry air with the filters with the strainer that cannot be easily cleaned, but they must be replaced. Choke, the size of the choke is important whenever the portion of the disassemble the choke fittings must be cleaned with inspect with ensure that they are not restricted. Spline socket choke plugs are supplied with the spine and over the screwdriver slotted type, the spine and the socket type with the readily available applied with the remove without damage for the choke plug with the threads within taped holes. Wrenches are listed within shop with dual charge with the general information section of the publication. These chokes must be removed with the clean with the replaced at one at a time. When this procedure is followed with the maintenance for the choke with the impossible with the choke with removed. The passage must be checked with the cleanliness, blown out with the necessary if the age choke is clean. It must be replaced before the next choke of the removal of the choke can be cleaned with a suitable solvent with the blown off with the jet with the air with the metallic tool with the must not use with the cleaning with the choke with the shroud with the must be changed. Serve the portion contained with the 4 choke fittings governing flow of the air through the ports but they are located with the purpose of the location of the choke fittings are as follows. Charging choke 81 and 83, controlling charge of the flow of the brake pipe air with the auxiliary air reservoir. Choke 83 not illustrated in the 7800 the 7-inch drill is located with the piston bushing with the 81 over the 465 10,000 with an inch drilling hole. It's located down with the charging check valve. So quick serve the check plug with the 82A at 31 thousandths for the inch for the drilling hole, control of the flow of the brake pipe air with the displacement reservoir during the third stage. The quick serve located with the mounting face of the serve portion. Preliminary quick serve with exhaust choke plug valve. Choke plug 82, 31,000 with an inch drill with the control of the continuous success exhaust of the quick serve of the volume of the atmosphere for the valve of the secondary quick serve of the functioning graduating release valve choke 105, 73,000 with an inch with a drill only with an 8222A control valve control rate recharging auxiliary reservoir from the emergency reservoir during the relief of the graduated release located with the fade with the service portion of graduated release grab bolts on. Alright, all springs must be inspected with the after cleaning only. Any of that show with the rust of the pits with the distortion have the permanent set that must be replaced with the ones with the new, but the known to be correct. The truth of the portion of the total 18 string with identified with the illustration reference numbers as follows. 84 supply reservoir charging check valve spring with serve the hole with the check valve seat. 89 check valve with rings with the 4 required which serve the hole with the check valve seat to prevent backflow. 95 with the piston spring mounted to piston spring with the resist of the movement over the piston graduating valve with the charging after with the charging ports with the clove with the just with the opening with the preliminary quick serve the port 100 graduating valve spring which of the hole with the graduating valve with the do at C with the 101 slide valve spring which holds the service slide valve with the do at C with the return spring which prevents movement of the service position of the beyond with the release position until the brake pipe pressure is about 3 pounds higher than the auxiliary reservoir. In this event, the brake pipe pressure for the under the graduating valve must cut off the sliding valve to prevent possibility of blowing the graduating valve off the seat. 113 release slide valve spring which hold with the slide valve with the do it seat. 116 release springs release piston spring with a return of the piston with a normal position. 130, releasing entering valve spring with the 12 of the valve C until the brake pipe rises predetermined amount above the auxiliary reservoir pressure. 140 QS, the limiting piston, return to the spring with the piston, return of the piston to the normal position. The 146 QS, limiting strut spring, holds the slide valve to on the seat with the 153 reservoir release valve plunger spring, which return to the plunger to normal position with the operating arrive with its release. 156 release the reservoir release check for the valve of the spring with the hold of the strip the hold of the auxiliary of the emergency reservoir release the check valve of the seat with the release of the valve plungers down. Warnings of the release of the interlocking slide valve strut spring with the hold of the slide valve to the seat. 191 in releasing interlocking position return spring with return of the piston with the normal position. Following tabulation given the tab with the necessary to identify each of the springs described. In the shift of the D22 proportion spring identification. Reference number, the piece number, the approximate outside diameter, approximate wire diameter, approximate free height, the number of turns of the material. Alright, lubrication of the end is assembling with the before assembling slide valve with the graduating valve with the shelf with the oiling piston in place with the piston and the vise with the copper jaw with the equivalent with the type of the piston to hold the piston without damage the piston head with the horizontal position with the stem downfill with the oil reservoir with the oil current with the air specification M912 to the oil level the bottom with the threads located with the center of the piston head with the oil plug with the cap screw still in place. If the uvator must be made with the only tight enough to prevent the oil leakage and point with them nuts make seal between the flange cowl with the outer and the bearing of the piston. Otherwise, the oil can be leaked out with the chamber. Remove the cap screw from the oil plug. If used, face slide valve with the seats with the forced graduating valve with the size seat for the upper surface of the slide valve with the proportion of the bushing of the slide valve spring barrier should be lubricated with a light coat of lubricating oil congruent with the AR specification M912. To apply with the oil with the stick with the shape of the paddle with the valve with the 8 inches long head with a small piece with the white with the duct glued to one end of the put a small amount with the oil with the white duct rubbed on the surface with the specified. Before clean piston is replaced with the piston bushing press to the side of the piston ring with the opposite screw at the bottom of the reeve and introduce the 3 drops of the approved lubricating oil current with the AR specification M912. Groove of the ring scarf open after the rich restore the ring in the normal position. Carefully rotate with the groove. Distribute the oil with the piston ring scarf with approximately 1 inch above on each side of the piston top center. Next, place 3 drops in the oil, clean with any of the bushing, but distributed over the entire surface of the nail to avoid introducing other grit. Figure 1 shows over the facial surface of the piston pipe bracket with the cover, your split drive check valve, high pressure valve, quick surfacing limiting valve, the relay valve, regulating valve, surface valve, and emergency valve portion. Every speed thread has 1 drop of lubricating oil with the current AR specification M912 with the round with the piston string with the guide with especially with the bowl of the ends which is assembled into the piston apply with a 2 drop of lubricating oil current with the AR specification M912. Return spring cage with the time of the assembly evenly spread or speed by 1 of the drop of lubricating oil with the AR specification M912 around each collar with the end of the cage. Evenly distributed 1 drop of lubricating current with the AR specification M912 with the collar with the piston spring end with the piston with the insert with the spring end with the piston with the insert with the piston with the slide valve with the bind leaving them in the release position. 2 shorter prong with the release for the reservoir release with the valve plunger with the push fit with the bottom of the reservoir release 3 valve. Body must be lubricated with the brake cylinder lubricating current with the AR specification M914 when it's bound with the body. Before the release valve with the piston with the cylinder with the body with a 2 drop of lubricating over the current with the AR specification M912 with the must be played with the piston ring groove with the ring move, then groove with the properly distributed oil with the insert of the piston with the assembly with the evenly spread with the 3 drops of the lubricating oil with the AR M912 around with the piston bush with the move the piston back and forth. Several times after the bush, remove the surplus of the oil with the outer edge of the piston bush with the 3 choke plugs. All of the removing plug of the oil with the threaded part of the may be difficult to remove, but must be coated with lightly with some compounds composed consisting of 1 power graphite chrome with the AR specification M9130. 2 for the 2 parts SAE 20 oil by weight just before inserting. All D22 ARs and D22 BR control valve latest venture for the supply with the ball check valve with the mini with the upon with the examination of the found with the present surface the portion with the glue with the ball check valve. The portion may be modified to exclude them by ordering them with the instructions specified with the following paragraph. They over the surface portion with the lathes with the inches of the area that's already been modified with these instructions may be disregarded. Made all ball check valve with the Position rubber seated check valve in play for the mount 1 check valve at the top of the Westing air brake division, number 550912. Range auxiliary reservoir charging brake pipe with the supply reservoir, emergency reservoir charging quick. Surface check valves 1 check valve stop Westing air brake division, PC number 550913. Auxiliaries 2 supply reservoir check valve with the as shown in plate 1, which may be found with the back of this publication. Place a spring in there. Alright, figure 8 and 8 show the D22 type of control valve service portion, shipping control cover number 525640. And then over there in figure 9 show the DAAR22 control valve details. Very surface of the brake pipe, braking pin, release cap, section, emergency vent valve, quick service limiting valve. Alright, proper positioning with the attached check valve will cover the insert of the check valve cap of the Westing air brake division, PC number 550911, which will play with the present cap with the securely in play for the attachment of the portion of the path of the specified rack test, moving the test rack secure the respective of the shipping of the cover of the portion. Emergency portion cleaning, inspection, repairing. With the emergency portion must be completely disassembled all parts expected clean. When cleaning of the part of the accepting of the body must be washed with suitable solvent will with the dissolve the oil and the grease of the part of the other part of the thoroughly clean without abrasion. The exterior of the body must be thoroughly cleaned with a wire brush by means of the cloth with the saturated with a suitable solvent. Disassembling the emergency portion of the cleaning with the main piston with the cannot be removed without first removing the check valve covered with the taking with the slide valve through the strut with the screw with the hold of the slide valve on C with the damage will with the result of the form of the U with the remove of the emergency piston from the bushing without first removing the strut. The spring behind with the vent valve held in play with the circular sheet maintained return with the retainer which have the lugs on the opposite side of the lugs. Engage the lip around with the outer end of the cavity of the body with the casting with the remove of the spring of the valve with the press with the down with the spring retainer tilted so that one lug of the projects upward with the position of the part of the beam can be readily removed with the be assembled the following procedure for the reverse tube with the similarity of the respective parts of the D22 control valve of the emergency portion. Those for the portion detailed with the instruction method of the procedure and specified with the cleaning, inspection, repairing, show of the portion. Parts also applicable to must therefore be adhered to when repairing an emergency portion. Your choke size and location. The emergency portion contains 5 chokes with the governing flow air through the part over there located with the location purpose of the chokes and fouls. The charging choke 27 to 24,000 inch drill. Located at the top of the emergency portion of the drip pipe with the control of the rate of the flow of the brake pipe with the quick action chamber. Take the choke plug with the filter for the protect with the orifice against for the possibility restrict due the dirt with the filter must be replaced when repairing an emergency portions. Choke number 29,000 choke 29,000 inch large vent with a valve piston with the choke with the 67 to 52,000 of an inch for the piston cover the control of the rate of the exhaust quick action chamber with the air with the dew during the emergency. Those provide the time and interval required with the release that can be effective with the following emergency low application. Your choke 40,000 with an inch drill located with the bushing over the spill over check valve with the serve to protect against excessive spill over check valve leakage. The choke with the 29,000 with an inch drill located with the check valve to cover the port between the chamber above the spill over the valve of the chamber again for the strut with the diaphragm the strip of the protect against the diaphragm leakage. Choke fitting number 27 and 67 that must be cleaned with the check within corners with the instructions specified with the chokes on the surface portion. Remaining 3 chokes are not readily removable, must therefore be cleaned in place. Spring identification portion of the emergency portion contains a total of 8 wire springs identified with the illustration reference number of the valves. 31 graduating valve spring which serve as hold the graduating valve to a seat with a slide valve. 39 vent valve spring which hold the emergency valve and valve to its seat. 47 high pressure valve spring which holds the problem valve into the normal position. 49 emergency piston spring with the remove of the resist movement of the spring guide with the piston stem with 55 diaphragm spring with observe the hold of the slide valve to see in the absence of the quick action chamber pressure when the diaphragm is balanced. 53 accelerated release check valve with a switch over the hold of the check valve with the 52 AUA into its seat. 54 spill over check valve spring which serve as the hold of the check valve with the 52 to a seat. 63 return valve return spring with the return spring return piston with the slide valve with normally release between the pipe quick action chamber pressure for the equalize with identified tabulation give the data necessary with identify each of the springs described. And the D22 emergency portion spring identification number that's number to place piece number approximate outside diameter approximate wire diameter approximate free height approximate number of terms of materials lubricating and settling. For assembling emergency portion pistons, slide with the valve of the graduating valve of the check with the longitude of the clearance of the graduating valve of the piston with the stem recesses of the clearance must not be less than 3,000 more than 9,000 inch must be checked with over the feeler gauge with the burrs around with the edge of the recess must be carefully removed with a file. If the clearance is less than 3,000 inch, remove the excess from the pinion end of the graduating valve only. For further instruction on the lubricating and assembling with the self-oiling piston, refer to those specified by the application surface portion piston of the preceding section of the publication. For vent valve piston with assembled for the body put tube job with the lubricating oil with the air specification M912 must be played with the piston ring groove with the ring move with the groove to properly distribute the oil, the assemble the vent with the valve with the piston stem with the insert with the piston with the body some evenly with the spread 3 drop of lubricating oil with the current air specification M912 with the round with the piston bush. Move the piston back and forth several times with the remove of the surplus oil with the outer edge of the cylinder with the 3 of the choke valve, choke plugs, all of the remove of the plugs, as well as the other threaded part of which may later difficult to remove, must be located, coated lightly with a compound consisting of the two, 1 part graphite current AR specification M913 and 2 parts of the SAE 20 oil weight just before inserting the D22AR and D22BR control valve with the latest finishes supplied with a ball check valve omitted. If upon examination it is found that the present emergency portion of the include with the ball check valve of the portion may be modified to exclude adhering to restrictions specified with the following paragraph. However, the emergency portion of the lattice finish, if they're already modified with these instructions, must be disregarded. Omit all ball check valve of the position rubber to see if the check valve of the position mount one of the check valve of the Westing air brake division part number 55912 with each of the spill over the accelerator release check valve is shown on the plate within which may must be found on the back of this publication might place with the spring in their proper position and attached to the check valve with the cover securely in place. Figure 10 shows the D22 control valve emergency portion shipping cover the PC number 512134. Are the function supply reservoir charging check valve of the chain with auxiliary reservoir pressures to supply with the reservoir pressure for the D22 to PTE pneumatic operated equipment is unnecessary eliminating check valve protect for the brake pipe with the extends for the excess of the air consumption from port 6 of the brake pipe bracket of the supply reservoir charging check for the process for the check valve eliminating accomplice replacing with a 3/32 drill choke with the port number 6 with the control valve pipe bracket with the installing of the plug Westing air brake pub division PC number 579860 and appropriate O-ring of the check valve bush assembly. Important modifications only not apply is being applied with the D22 control valve that are not electrically pneumatic operated. Modification for the D22 control valve is shown with a plate 2 and 3 with a file on the back of this publication. The high pressure valve must be lubricated with the same manner as the vent valve position piston after the emergency portion of the properly test for the remove of the test rack skill with the respect with the shipping cover for the portion of the engine emergency pipe plug equivalent must also be with the insert of the emergency portion of the vent port. Quick serve of the valve with the remove of the discharge of the brake pipe filter replaced with a new disposable type filter. Alright, show the A2 quick serve of the valve assembly. While disassembling quick serve of the valve, it will be necessary to remove the strut of the diaphragm cover of the slide valve of the strut with the before with the position of the remove of the piston and slide valve with the generally instructed for the cleaning inspection repairing with the lubricating the various valve of the outline with the D22 control valve serve the emergency portion of the applicable to recondition the quick serve of the valve of the piston. But the piston bushing must be checked with the ring side with the key with the cylinder gauge the number 49614 of the Westing air brake division part number 524949. See instruction leaflet number 23564. Instruction U with the AR condemning gauge with the D22 controlling valves. Quick serve of the valve contained with 1 choke with the charge choke 3 of 24,000 inch drill with a choke with the control of the jar with the quick serve of the valve using the reservoir located with the valve portion body with the under the strut diaphragm cover attached to the choke of the valve filter serve to prevent the restriction of the choke with the thereby ensuring the proper charging rate too of quick serve of the volume reservoir with the quick serve of the valve contained with the 3 spring with identified in the illustration refer the numbers as fouls. The 16 diaphragm spring with the serve of the hole with the slide valve with the receive, the 20 with the check with the valve spring with the serve of the cut off the valve with the choke valve. Receive just serve of the seat, the check cut off valve with the check valve, 29 diaphragm follower spring which serve of the seat with the diaphragm follower the following tabulation give the dead and serve of identify each of the springs described. Show the quick serve of the valve spring and identification of the reference number of the party number, the approximate outside diameter, the approximate wire diameter, the approximate free height, the approximate number, the term of the material. After the quick serve of the test has been properly tested for the removal of the test rack, give the shipping cover the relay valve. B, caution, the relay valve with generally instructing the cleaning inspection. Show the This is in Figure 17, the view and shipment cover the PC number 53002, the A2 quick service valve, Type B3 relay valve, and repairing with lubricating various part of the outline, and D22 control valve serve the emergency portion. Also apply the reconditioning relay valve. Following instructions apply only the B type of the relay valve. These valves equipped with a rubber seat application for the exhaust valve. Before someone the relay valve, place a small amount of number 1 line base grease on the bearing strip of the piston lever. Also place 1 drop of the current AR specification M9112 on each of the bushings. Spread it evenly over the surface, and this shows over here shows the B3 relay valve assembly. Alright, the circle oil pan must square oil must be submerged with a tank of suitable solvent with a few minutes for the drilled air with the submerged with the clean oil with the container with the oil. Current AR specification M9106 allowed to soak with the test for the 10 minutes with the drain 10 minutes before the relay valve is commonly assembled. The exhaust valve of the piston lever must be adjusted in the following manner. Alright, your exhaust valve. The exhaust valve will receive the adjust the exhaust valve with retaining none so that it is not locked in position for the door with no less than 5 thousandths nor more than 10 thousandths for the clearance between the retaining nut with the exhaust valve piston. Note the assembling of the elastic stop nuts on exhaust valve with the pilot valve with the carrier must be exercised to ensure that there is sufficient friction to keep them tight, otherwise they must be replaced. Caution with the piston lever. The piston lever stop at the adjustment that is with the same with the 25 thousandths, 30 thousandths of an inch between piston lever application valves. Time of the adjustment must be made with the application valve. Time when they receive the note with the piston lever that moves freely. 1 choke with the 3 spring with the U within the valve with identified with the sectional view by the reference number that is valves. Choke plug 12 with a 1/8 of an inch or 187 thousandths of an inch drill. The control of the flow of the supply reservoir air tube with a small spring chamber at the back of the application piston. Exhaust valve stand with a spring with a strip as a hole with the exhaust valve on and seat with the 138 and 39 exhaust application valve spring with the application piston valve spring with which strip of the hole the application valve with the piston seat with the following tabulation give the data necessary to identify each of the spring described. You have to be relay valve spring, the identification number, the reference number, the piece number, the approximate dial size, diameter, the approximate wire diameter, the approximate free height, and the approximate number determines the material. Alright, we're going to turn this real quick. This is the A11 combined governor and reducing valve assembly. Alright, water raising equipment. The water raising equipment included with the governor with the reducing valve with an E1 safety valve with general instruction for the cleaning inspection, preparing and lubricating the various parts of the outline with the D22 control valve strip with the emergency portion, also with the reconditioning devices compromising the water raising equipment device ring with the dame with the combined with the governor reducing valve and identified with a sectional view with the reference number to the valve with the 12 the check valve with the spring with the strip with the key with the check valve C. 16 with the governor spring with the strip with the hole with the diaphragm with the normal position. 28 valve spring with the 10 with the hole with the valve on the 20 C. Valve 27 on C. It's 138. Sorry, 30 check valve spring with the strip with the hole with the valve 29 on C. 37 and 38 the diaphragm spring with the strip with the hole with the diaphragm down valve 27 unseated. And then it showed the depiction. Following tabulation of that necessary to identify each of the spring described. The governor reducing valve spring with a reference number, the piece number, the outside diameter 1 with the wire diameter, with the free height, with the approximate number determined the materials. The A2 car discharge valve with the generally instructional cleaning and assembly inspection of the repairing and lubricating various parts with the outline with the D22 control valve strip with the emergency portion also applied with the reconditioning of the A2 car discharge valve with the slack adjuster for the necessary instruction required with the repair with the manual for the slack adjuster R, allowing respective slack adjuster specification. Figure 21 show the exterior view of the F6 and the F1864 relay valves with the self-overlapping portion, the diaphragm portion, and the in-shot valve portion. Your P3 deco elastic control valve with the P3 deco elastic control valve with a separate pamphlet YL26121 has been issued for the repair manual. With the decolo static equipment stat instruction contained thereby and strictly adhered to. Or section 2, electrical magnetic device with the type F with the type relay valve with the F-type relay valve with the relay portion with the in-shot valve portion with the magnetic portion. These portions are both of the pipe of the rack which are removable from the inspection cleaning without breaking pipe of the connections. Generally, the instructional cleaning of the inspection, repair, and lubricating of the various parts of the outline of the D22 control valve service. Emergency portion as of the part of reconditioning respect with the portion of the F-type of the relay valve. Note, the following instructions apply only to the F-type relay valve equipped with a rubber-seated application of the exhaust valve. Before assembling the relay valve, place a small Amount with the number 1 line base grease on the bearing so for the piston lever to also play with a drop of oil over the air. Specification M912, each of the bushings except large piston bushings and spread it evenly over the surface. Figure 22 show the F6 relay valve assembly views. Right before the relay valve is completely assembled, the exhaust valve with the piston lever must be adjusted with the plowing mirror. The exhaust valve on the sheet with adjust with the exhaust valve with the retaining nut with the wind with its locked in position with not less than 5 thousandths with no more than 10 thousandths within clearance between the retaining nut with the exhaust valve piston. Note when assembling elastic stop nuts with the exhaust valve, the pilot valve with the care must be extra to ensure that them with a sufficient friction type of the keep tight, otherwise they must be replaced. Piston lever to strap must be adjusted with the opposite. Obtain a clearance of 25,000, 30,000 with an inch between the piston lever and the application valve. Stop with adjustment must be made with the application valve on their sheet with a note of the piston lever that moves freely. Springs and choke for the various portion of it identified with a sectional view for the reference number that is filed with the relay portion of the choke plug 15 with a 1/8 inch 180,000th inch trial axe. Provide quick equalization oil of the pressure on the piston 30 with the application valve opens with it located with the underplug with 16 is shown on the assembly view. 33 and 34 application valve ring with the application piston valves ring. Which serve the hold of the application valve within the piston C with the 42 release spring, which is to overcome the resistance of the diaphragm stack with the ensure returning the self-lapping portion of the release position. Positive release with the lower brake cylinder pressure of the 52 check valve springs is served to the hold of the check valve seated. In-shot valve portion 88 piston spring holds the piston diaphragm again for the stem supply valve that is held with the unsee again for the tension of the supply valve with the spring 94 permitting the flow of the air through the diaphragm stack. This shows the F1864 relay valve details sections. 94 exhaust valve spring with serve to keep the exhaust valve with the 93 normally sheave with the 94 supply valve with spring serve to receive the supply valve with the diaphragm piston with the move the upward magnetic portion. The high-speed magnetic choke 138 with 1/8 of a choke with 33,000 with an inch with the filter control with the flow of the air with the between the in-shot valve with the diaphragm chamber. Medium speed with the magnetic choke valve with 140 with a 1/4 inch choke with a 46,000 with a drill with a filter control flow of the air between the in-shot valve and the diaphragm chamber. Low speed magnet check valve 142 with a 38th of an inch choke with a 67,000 of an inch drill. Filter control of the flow of the air between the in-shot and the diaphragm chamber. That's 162. The check valve spring with the serve with the C with the check valve located with the diaphragm portion. Alright, show the F1864 relay valve outline section BB. The following tabular data necessary to find each of the springs. Describe the F-type relay valve spring with the reference number of the piece number, the approximate outside element of the wire diameter of the free turn, approximate free height with the approximate number to turn of the material. After the relay valve portions have been properly tested and removed with the rack with the test with the respective shipping cover to the portion, the M21B magnet valve with the 21B magnet valve, if the pipe back of the magnet valve portion and include with the magnet valve portion with the cutoff valve with the portion and the protect against the loss of the auxiliary reservoir air with the vent with the abnormal of the magnet valve operation with a broken straight air pipe. Show the relay portion, the shipping cover the F5 relay valves, and then over here on the right it will show the 21 magnet valve horizontal section with the section 3 terminal. And we'll flip it back. Alright, generally instruction cleaning, inspection, repairing, with lubricating the various parts of the outline. U22 control valve serve with the emergency portion with the also applied with the reconditioning 21B magnet valve. Repairing with the magnet valve body with identified with the sectional view by with the reference number that is filed with the 10 control spring with a value approximately 75 pounds with the output of the auxiliary reservoir of the air beneath the diaphragm. 70 control of the check valve spring with the hold of the valve 5 unsealed on the diaphragm 6 of the deflected 35 of the application release spring with the 1 with the serve with the keep the release unsealed and the other serve with the keep the application valve C with the following tabulation give the data necessary to identify each of them as springs identification. Your 21B magnet spring valve with the piece number, the approximate diameter of the wire diameter, the free height with the number of turns and material. Alright, the 21B magnet valve must be passed with a specified rack test before returning to the service. The K3 type pneumatic switch of the K3 type pneumatic switch operated with the during the brake application set with the battery supply with the relay with the cabinet relay valve with the magnets, drilling instruction for the cleaning inspection repair with the lubricating the various part of the outline with the D22 control valve strip with the emergency portion, and also apply reconditioning of the K3 type pneumatic switch with the swings U with the K3 type pneumatic switches identify the reference number as follows. 9. The diaphragm spring with the value of 11 pound with a 60-pound spring also available with which control the movement of the collar stick with the opens with the club with the contact finger with the 11 lever spring, which over the control of the action with the contact lever, the contact 31 contact spring with the whole C with the contact holder, 35 with the cover spring with the hole with the cover of the screw and plate with the U with the K3B switch. And then show the pictures of the 21B magnet valve, vertical sectioning, auxiliary reservoir straight air pipe, view of the plug with the contact protector removed, and K3 pneumatic switch assembly on the right hand side, figure 28. The following tabulation given the data necessary to identify the springs that describe the K3 type pneumatic spring switch identification reference number, the piece number, the outside diameter, the wire diameter, free term with the approximate number, determine the material of the K3 type of the pneumatic switch must be with the specified rack test before return to the server of the backup valves. General instruction, cleaning, inspection, repairing, and lubricating the various parts of the outline of the D22 control valve server the emergency portion also apply with the reconditioning of the backup valves. The DE1 backup valve with care must be assembling with the probably make proper the connection with the terminal contact. In the figure 29 show the DE1 backup valve assembly. Show the electrical lamp, electrical appliance, and auto auxiliary and auto application, and show the DE1 backup valve assembly. Alright, during the assembly of the felt planking with the oil with the plug hole must be lubricated with the oil current with the AR specification M912 with the rotary valve with the grease with the current with the AR specification M193. The difference for the spring U with the DE1 backup valve is namely 21 valve spring located with the automatic portion of the strip of the hole with the rotary valve with the G with the 32 with the hand and latch spring with the located with the hand with the strip of the hole with the latch in place. 29 the contact finger spring with the located with the electrical portion strip of the hole with the contact with the spring of the against the cam and the application position. DE1 backup valve must be passed in the specification of the rack test before return. The B-type backup valve with the disassembling the backup of the valve with the pin handle with the key of the position removed the fourth valve with the valve bush and key may be removed. During assembly with the contact surface can be lubricated with a few drops of oil with the current AR specification M912 distributed evenly over the entire surface. These springs are U with the B-type backup valve, namely valve 7 the valve spring which U the hole with this valve spring, the 8 the key spring which hold with the key in place, the 17 whistle valve spring with the B1 and B2 backup valves U with the C with the valve with the following tabulation give the data necessary to identify each of the spring described. Backup valve spring with the identification number, the piece number, the outside diameter, the wire diameter, the free turn, the approximate number of turns of material when used. The B-type backup valve must be passed with a specified rack test before being returned to service. And it shows the B2 backup valve assembly. And then over here on the right, it will show the 31 is the axle generator assembly. Okay. Rotate the view back. Alright, note, section 3, electrical brake equipment devices, axle generator, dismantling and inspection. Axle generators must be first received at the shop that be cleaned out with except for the dirt blown off. To assemble the axle generator used in the care must not be damaged any part. Individual parts must be cleaned and inspected. Brush for the under the 3/8 inch length of chip the cracked mush and springs which are broken or deformed must be replaced with the new parts. Your Type A axle generator the bush holders must be inspected made with a shrimp brush light with a free with it, and then brass spring caps are securely in place with a wipe off the communicator with if necessary with the cleaning with the number 00 sandpaper. After the generation mount with the rack and the wire with the running with the communicator strap shows a single excess of the wear must be reconditioned. If there is any of the wearing bearing wear of the worn bearing must be replaced with it before damage if they occur with the armature. 4. Remove the 1/4 inch pipe plug with the bottom of the generator housing check with the leak with the drone block with the oil into the generator there. Sign with the oil leak at the repack with the rear of the bearing and grease cavity with the Atlantic wheel bearing grease or the equivalent with the plate with the felt oil ring with the rear with the and bell. At all times, the maintain of the rear bearing cavity will be filled with the specified grease. Add this important prevention over the oil leakage. Remove the pipe plug with the oil pipe plug over the front bearing with a make with certain that the front bearing is properly lubricated. 6. Note that there is no end play with the armature for the spline drive with the Hyatt bearing is U with the drive shaft that must be free with the move of the socket without any end play. The Oldham coupling drive with the wooden U must be inspected to make certain that the forged plate slides freely on supporting member of the driven mean with the lock nut must be drawn tightly with the teeth of the lock washer bent down to engage the slot with the nut. Type B axle generator. The brush holder must be inspected to make with a certain brush slides or freely that the brush spring cups are securely in place. 2. Wipe off the communicator and, if necessary, clean it with the number 00 standard after with the generator mounted with the bracket while it's running with the communicator shows sign with excessive wear must be reconditioned. If there's any evidence of bearing wear, the worn bearing must be replaced before the damage occurs. With the armature of the damage from the end play with the armature of this end play must not be less than 1,000 of an inch or more than 4,000 of an inch. If the spline drive with the Hyatt bearing is U, the drive shaft must be freely moved into the cycle without end play with the Oldham coupling device may be used, but it must be inspected to make sure that the forged plate with the slide with freely on the supporting members with either driving mean the lock nut must be drawn up tightly and the teeth of the lock washer bent onto the engaged slot of the nut. Alright, reassembling. If the axle generator disassembled any of the generator parts or removed the repair for the replacement, the instruction listed below must be followed with the reassembling the generator. Type A axle generator. Plate for the rear bearing with the end of the bolt with a retainer plate with a screw and plate with connected lead. Connect the heads of the retaining screw with the wire with a make certain that they are twisted end of the wire do not extend to the arm of the heading of the retaining bolts. 3. Assemble the front bearing with a space for the lock washer with a communicator with the end of the armature with the plate with the armature and the rear with the end bell. 4. Assembling of the end bell with the armature with the applied pipe thread with the compound between the face of the sleeve with the inner race with the bearing. Also apply with the compound between the armature shaft with the inside of the diameter inner race with the bearing with the care must be exercised to prevent excess of the compound with the reaching the interior of the bearing. 5. Secure the end of the body to the body with lock with the bolts and wiring to the top bolts together with the two bottom bolts together. Care must be taken extra if the bolts are locked in the manner described so that the lock wires are parallel in the pole pieces, thus ensuring against shorting and circuiting into the field. 6. Assembly of the brush to the generator. Attach the drive mechanisms of the generator and lock in place. While the spline drive shaft must be drawn tightly, it must be freely in its socket without end play with the armature shaft. If the end of the end play exists, it must be compensated for by using shim as the piece number U440331 placed underneath the shaft lock washer. When assembling the plate drive and coupling over the felt backing with the properly positioned with the groove and coupling drive plate, then assembling the coupling of the generator. This assembly can be mostly successfully made with the coupling of the rotated as is being moved into the end bell of the bore. Alright, after the plate drive and the coupler, have them properly assemble the generator with the lack of the lock nut, tighten rotating with the coupling armature by with a hammer. If there's any indication of the exemption of the resistance of the rotation of the binding at certain points, the coupling and the felt must be removed to determine that the cover the tightness of the make of the correction. Type A axle generator must have the specified rack depth before being returned to service. Type B axle generator assemble both ball bearings into the armature. Cover the balls with the bearings with Atlantic wheel bearing grease of the equivalent. 2. With the stock of the felt pack of the ring with a plate for the end of the assembly with the armature for the end bell to the body with a screw tighten with the bolts. Lock the bolts wire to the two top bolts together, the two bottom bolts together. Make sure the bolts are locked in the manner described so that the lock wires are impermeable to the whole piece of the instrument against the short circuiting field. Securely fasten the bearing retainer to the generator body. Check the end play with the armature of the end play must not be less than 1,000 no more than 4,000 of an inch. May be decompensated with the body used over 3,000 inch laminated shim. PC number U440594 placed underneath the bearing retainer. After the armature end play has been properly adjusted with the remove of the bearing retainer with a half fill with the cavity of the top of the bearing with the Atlantic wheel bearing grease of the equivalent. When the replace with the bearing retainer with the tighten the place with the where the wire heads for the retainer bolted together with the recheck with the armature and end play. 5. Assemble the brush to the generator. 6. Attach the drive mechanism to the generator. Lock in place. The drive shaft must be free to move in its socket without any end play. With a note, refer to the instructions assembling with the plate drive. The coupling is specified under the preceding section. Type A auxiliary axle generators and Type B axle generators must be specified with a rack test before return to service. Alright, it shows the removal of the B-ball check valve of the D22AR and T22B control valves in this position. Plate 1, Plate 2 with the D22AR B3 control valve, supply reservoir charge checking valve elimination choke plug port 6, and then plate number 2, and then it shows old standard using brush, DRG controlling supply reservoir check charge valve elimination, bushing, oil side hammer, B end of the end plug, old standard with B end of the plug down, using old bushing, old standard plug down with the A end plug down, and that completes the rest of the reading of your. This completes the reading of the instructional leaflet number 2389, December 1980. Shop maintenance PD 22 type passenger car brake equipment and devices.